Hi, welcome to the Forward Food Tech podcast, where we explore the future of food and agriculture with the people who are taking us there. Today, our guests are Nathaniel Jackson and Angela Tsetsis from TrueAlgae, a company that is at the forefront of innovation with algae biofertilizers, aiming to increase farmer productivity in a cost-effective, carbon net zero way. Nathaniel has been CEO of TrueAlgae since 2017. He worked at the Inter-American Development Bank for over 20 years and held several senior positions, including Chief of Staff of Private Sector Operations. He is a founding partner of Next Impact Ventures, an impact fund that made an initial investment in TrueAlgae. Our other guest today, Angela, is the Chief Commercial Officer at TrueAlgae. Angela has been working with algae since the early 90s, and her expertise lies in biotechnology, sales, and marketing. Angela is a former senior executive at Martek Biosciences, which is arguably the most successful algae company to date. Angela has worked with several startup companies using various microbial technologies for health and wellness of people and planet. Here is the conversation between Rob, Nathaniel, and Angela.
Well, welcome, Nathaniel and Angela, to the Forward Food Tech podcast. I'm delighted to have this business on board. I'm passionate about this industry. It's really addressing some really exciting new areas of the way agriculture can change. To start with, Nathaniel, tell us about TrueAlgae and what do you do in essence?
Okay, well, first of all, Rob, thanks so much for having us on the Forward Food Tech podcast. I'm a big fan. I've listened to all of your podcasts. But TrueAlgae is a sustainable algae production company bringing the benefits of natural and regenerative algae to the world. Our patented IP enables us to manufacture high-grade algae in bulk extremely efficiently. We can harvest up to 50% every day, and we have 70% gross margins. And our first vertical market, which we'll be talking about extensively today, is selling the algae as a biofertilizer. It's a huge global market of over $10 billion, and our 100% organic product works with nature, unlike chemical fertilizers, but also returns higher yields per acre, which of course is so important for the farmers. And just briefly, in terms of traction, we have a 36 metric ton production facility in Florida. We have more than $1 million revenue, and we've raised more than $5 million US dollars to date.
I can tell you the numbers, man.
Right, absolutely. You've got to have it on your fingertip.
We'll go into deeper detail in a moment. But Angela, tell us a little bit about your role in the business and what's your day-to-day challenges you're looking at and opportunities.
Sure. So I'm the Chief Commercial Officer here at TrueAlgae, and I manage anything that happens commercially. So I work with the sales team and get marketing materials together to help broaden our reach into the farming community. We work with the farmers to help them understand how our product can impact their bottom line. It's not always about productivity, it's really about profitability for them. And we work very hard to fit into their systems and how they do their farming and not create additional work for them.
I think this farmer engagement piece is a really critical thing across the whole agtech space.
Mm-hmm.
I'd really like to sort of unravel a bit of that. But firstly, Nathaniel, where did this all come from? Where was the origin of this?
It's a bit of serendipity. My background is basically in sustainable economics, and I worked at the Inter-American Development Bank for roughly 20 years, working on investing in private sector projects, which had a triple bottom line, basically financial, environmental, social, sustainable works. And when I retired from the IDB, through a bit of serendipity—
You're too young to retire, Nathaniel.
Yeah, I know. But I founded a small impact fund, and our second investment actually was in this really interesting technology which came out of Korea. And what fascinated us, we could harvest 50% every day. It had the high gross margins. It only needed water, sunlight, small amounts of trace minerals, and a little bit of CO2. And we acquired the marketing rights outside of Korea to market this globally. So we started in the US, in the state of Florida, with a very small test plan of about 0.5 metric tons. We started testing it with strawberry farmers in Florida, got some good results, expanded to 3.6 tons. We're able to expand that to sales in California, which in the US is the center of the fruit and vegetable market. And ultimately, we were able to raise funds to build this 36 metric ton plant. So that's how we started and gained some traction.
Now, I've been to your plant in Florida. It was actually
That's
a few
right.
days before the first lockdown in the UK and
That's right.
ultimately in the US. It's a lovely place to be. It's like an aquarium without the fish. And I could just, I could happily watch those bubbles go up vertically every day in a nice, relaxing way. I mean, I think you could probably sell it as just as a place to chill out in. But
Well, that could be another income stream. But
when
we'll
you
have to
compare
see.
that to the concrete monsters that industrialized fertilizers plants are made from, and you think, God, this is a complete reversal of everything about the fertilizer industry. You've got something that produces oxygen with almost no industrialization. It's a very gentle process, as I said. And this is just almost too good to be true. When you went through some of the numbers on the impact you're having on strawberries, and I was originally a strawberry grower, so I'm really passionate about strawberries. But you gave me some numbers, and I didn't frankly believe you. So that's another reason why we got on a plane and went over to come and see you, despite the imminent COVID pandemic that's happening across the world. Angela, talk us through some of the impact you're having on strawberries as an example. And I know it's affecting other crops for lots of different ways, but what is it actually doing, this material?
Right. So, our product is, the metabolites that algae produce while they grow, and they express out these metabolites into their growth environment. And we harvest that water that the algae grows in, and it's dense in phytonutrients. These are the same phytonutrients that the algae themselves use to grow. And as you can imagine, anything green would like those same types of compounds. So it makes complete sense that we would apply it to other plants and help them grow. What it's really doing actually is, whether it's through drip irrigation or foliar applications, it helps the microbiome regenerate, repopulate in the soil. It increases the microbe diversity in the soil. And that diversity helps to release the nutrients that are in the soil, make them more available for the plant to uptake, and help the plant's root system grow to take in those nutrients. And that results in a healthier plant, more flowering, more fruiting. In strawberries, what we see is 20% minimum yield increase. We see improvements in the quality of the crop that comes out. The strawberries tend to have firmer flesh, which means they retain their moisture better, which extends their shelf life. So it's not just about yield, but it's also about the quality of that yield.
And you also need less fertilizers, normal conventional fertilizers.
So we've done some testing that shows we can reduce the more conventional fertilizers by as much as 75%. Our customers right now are using it much more as an additive, and in some cases are playing around with reducing their fertilizer. But at this point, because they see the benefits as an additive and the return on investment is there, they're not yet willing to take the risk of doing what they're familiar with. And so they add it on top. But as time goes on, and as we see the industry changing and moving more towards natural inputs, we believe that we'll see more and more farmers rely on our product to reduce their chemistry.
To get around 20% uplift in yield and longer shelf life without damaging eating quality is a sort of a 30-year genetics program right there. I mean, we were involved in the early 90s in genetically modified strawberries, which were eventually banned in Europe and the UK. The amount of money that we needed to make even slight modifications to improve things, even with the fast tracking of GM, what you're achieving there is extraordinary. The interesting thing about the nitrogen or the conventional fertilizers, that does suggest that the plant and the rhizosphere, or the root zone in the rhizosphere, is actually using what's there already, because we're not creating fertilizer, we are just using what's better there. So it must be a monumental amount of waste of nitrogen that is then ultimately washed to the aquiflow, the groundwater. That is fascinating. But to optimize the root zone and enable microbes to do their job, I guess what we're learning here across the world in soil health is how that improves plant vigor. So you get a more robust plant, don't you? You get a plant that is able to deal with extremes, possibly even infections or pest attacks. Do you get a higher root growth? Is there a different root volume achieved here?
Yes, and we see that the roots are longer, thicker. They have more of the smaller roots coming off. seem to reach further out into the soil, which could be part of why you need less fertilizer. Fertilizers aren't, specific to the root ball. It's just covering the ground. So the roots are reaching further and able to absorb those nutrients easier and faster.
The tough question here now is, you're not alone in this market. So what's your edge that you'd say that TrueAlgae provides the farmers?
It's easy to use. It's a liquid product that they can dilute into their irrigation water. They can add it with other inputs for applications that they're already doing. We try and fit into the farmer's program. However they're managing their crop, we're just a plug-in. I think that's one of the helps. I also see that, with our organic nature and the lack of processing of our product, it's more potent. We dilute our product 1 gallon in 250 gallons of irrigation water and see these results. So it's a highly concentrated, very rich organic product.
So let's go back to unit economics, is that we always have to talk about this amongst these innovations. Nathaniel, what sort of numbers are we achieving for the farmer? So cost benefit ratio is what?
Well, it's a sliding scale, really depending on the type of crop which is being grown and where it's being grown. We typically try to think about it as a return on investment for the farmer. And just to give you an example, a farmer in Florida, the typical revenue per acre is roughly $30,000 to $35,000 a year with a normal treatment. Given the fact that we're able to show and demonstrate 20% increase on their ultimate revenue for that. And there are some additional costs because there are more picking costs, but roughly it's at least 15% extra when you take it all in. So the return on investment there was roughly, anywhere from 5 to 8 times their investment. In California, where the strawberry grower has roughly between $85,000 and $90,000 of revenue per acre, a 20% or 15% bump can result in up to 20x of their investment.
I'll give you $1 and you give me $20.
That's the simple proposition. And that's why even though it's an additive, it's a very compelling return on investment for the farmers.
Exciting. And of course, it's environmentally unbelievably beneficial, which is hand in hand with everything. It's got to add up financially for everybody, but also it's got a big impact environmentally. This is the liquid the algae lives in. The liquid then, it's shelf stable, is it? Or can you ship it around the world?
Well, there are some shipping restrictions in some cases, but our goal ultimately is to, build facilities locally because it's not cheap to ship liquids across the ocean. It's much more efficient to try to build plants close to, the end users.
That makes a lot of sense. And so you're looking for people to work with doing that?
That's correct. Internationally, we have a license agreement model. So we already have a license agreement up and running in Mexico. We have letters of intent with multi-billion-dollar companies in Japan and Brazil to own and operate their own facilities there. Right. And we're in talks in multiple other countries for setting up facilities.
Sounds good. So if you're selling the liquid the algae lives in, and that's the product you sell as a treatment, what happens to the algae? And what are your thoughts there?
Algae is a remarkable organism. I've been working with algae since the early 90s and just think it's an untapped resource that could do so many things. And, in my past lives, I've worked in human nutrition with algae and animal nutrition. So we have opportunities with our product. It contains a high amount of protein, a lot of phytonutrients that are good for human health, for animal health. We hope to monetize the algae itself in some of these environments. And actually, we recently received a grant to do some studies in the chicken feed arena using the biomass to support egg quality, as well as chicken health and the meat quality as well.
And so let's talk about the wider remit for other crops in agriculture, Angela. Strawberry market's big, but what else are you looking at?
Well, we have about 40 trials going on with a variety of farmers, everything from potatoes and other kinds of berries, cane berries, and all the way to cannabis and hemp, which is an exploding market, at least here in the US. We're seeing a variety of results. We're even working in some of the, I believe what you call in the UK, broad acre crops. Here we call them row crops. and seeing some interesting benefits even with 1 or 2 applications, because it helps the soil be better and healthier for the plant. We're looking forward to getting results across the board. We're also working remiss in mentioning greenhouses, so indoor applications, and working with a variety of, they're very different, these indoor applications, lots of different systems used. So we're learning about that and working with different growers and understanding how we can plug in.
And I guess that you need a microbial environment to apply your treatment in that glasshouse environment for it to have the impact that it could have.
It's certainly more impactful if there's some microbes added into the system. Some of them use a substrate but still include some sort of microbe incorporation. In some of the other areas, it foams or rock wool or something like that. And so we're still learning how we fit in.
What is the biggest challenge you think you've yet to overcome?
Well, in terms of challenges, I think there's a couple different areas. One, of course, is our ongoing research and development effort. We're constantly trying to learn more about the soil microbiome and the interaction of our TrueSolid product with the microbiome. It's basically an organic prebiotic product. We know it works well with probiotic products. And we have plenty of evidence from third-party sources that our product works in multiple environments, like Angela was talking about, the controlled environment, agriculture, as well as in multiple different places like California, Florida, Mexico, et cetera. But we also have to work with multiple third-party companies to try to help us better understand. So we're working with biomakers and AgNexus to help us better understand how our product works and the dynamics, and to help us better explain to our customers. And I'd say the other big challenge is how we leverage ourselves. We want to replicate our model in multiple countries, so we're trying to develop partnerships. The challenge is each country has different regulatory environment, different physical environment. So we need to be able to work with local experts and counterparts to help develop the production and distribution in their own countries.
So if you could wind the clock back to the day you started this, what have you done differently?
Oh my gosh, great question. Well, I think we would have focused a little bit earlier on the R&D. We were so focused on getting the company up and running, but I think the continuous challenge which Angela and her team face is explaining exactly why it works. And that's why what we found is it's a very, very complex interaction process with the microbiome. And there's no single answer. It's not like chemistry where you add one chemical to another and there's an automatic reaction. This is a very complex microbial community which has billions of fungi and microbiome. So it's really a complex interaction, and we're trying to tease out exactly why it works. And not just have general statements, but really dig in for what's the driving behavior. And I think we're getting a lot closer to it. But if I were to go back, I would spend more time and energy on R&D initially.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating because actually often it's the other way around normally. People get stuck in, buried in the science and not commercially out there enough. So I wouldn't beat yourself up too much. I think
no.
I think it's never a perfect balance.
No.
And, at least you've got customers that are buying it and like it and want to keep buying.
That's right.
Let's portray a future in 5 years' time. What do you think that will look like?
Our vision going forward is to leverage the amazing regenerative power of algae to make a net carbon zero biofertilizer. I mean, that would be the ultimate vision in a cost-effective way, and then just leverage this around the world. So as we talked about a little bit earlier, we want to find partnerships in other countries. We're building out our own production facilities in the US and are marketing directly there. But we do need to have local partners to build this, both in other developed economies like throughout Europe and Asia, but also in many emerging markets as well. And so really our mission based on that vision is to help growers around the world increase their productivity, which obviously, as Angela was talking about, is the key variable for them, while at the same time improving their soil, their water, and reducing their greenhouse gas emissions.
I love it. Sounds great. And Angela, I mean, the issue that we see with other technologies in the sector is that once people start using any technology like this, the farms don't tend to, after they've started doing it, they can sometimes forget why they've got it. As if they've made that marginal gain, and they may not always attribute it to that technology. It could be a range of reasons. It could be weather. It could be just how clever they are at farming. And it's one of the biggest challenges is farming is always about a multitude of different touching points that make something work or not. There must be quite a frustration at times.
Well, we're relatively early in the process. Most of our growers, we have a few growers that are heading into year 4 of using our product, but most of them are in year 2, maybe year 3. And so we still have a constant dialogue with them because they're still learning how to use our product and dial it in to their specific application as we learn, which Nathaniel talked about. That's certainly something we're working on all the time to help understand how we can better support the farmer. So the dialogue continues, and we right now remain very hands-on with our growers and hope to continue that throughout the years to come.
So working with bioamine makers, they do DNA analysis of microbes, don't they?
That's correct.
So there must be other partners technically that you're interested in working with around the world. What type of partners would you like to meet or connect with if you had a magic book of lists?
Right. I think both Angela and I will have responses to this, but basically those that are on the leading edge of understanding the genomics and the biome, those are the partners we want to have, because at the end of the day, we want to build a patent portfolio based on the knowledge that we get from these, leading edge companies.
Certainly beyond R&D, we've always interested in customers, but we'd like to partner up with other like-minded companies in biologicals, looking at opportunities to combine our product with synergistic products in the marketplace. We believe we can amplify some of the impact that some of these other products are having, and they could amplify what we're doing. So we see lots of opportunities for, blended products, collaborations in that way, and would be very interested in working and creating science around that.
Are you looking for investment at the moment?
We're just closing our latest round, so we're not really looking for future investment at this moment, but we will be next year. We'll be going out for a Series A.
Sounds good. Thank you for your time today. It's a real pleasure looking forward to TrueAlgae and a whole range of family of products that you can have and in making the impact that it could do with both economics and environment. Congratulations, you've done a great job.
Thank you very much, Rob. Really appreciate this opportunity. And best of luck to you and Forward Food Tech.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks very much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. For more information and takeaways from this episode, please visit forwardfoodtech. See you next time.